What is going on, guys? It is Wrestlelamia here, back with some more news. Join us now as we look at the wildest news stories and rumors you need to know, including lots of backstage news from 2021's Royal Rumble, including Bianca Belair's emotional backstage reception, the replacements that were made, and surprise entrants that may or not have been used. A SmackDown superstar's contract is expiring very soon, many records being broken, John Cena not appearing at WrestleMania anymore, and much more. Be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell for daily wrestling videos and follow us on Facebook for exclusive lists. Now let's hit the intro and get straight into the first story. Our first story looks at Bianca Belair's backstage reception. Last night's Women's Royal Rumble was nothing short of great, as noted in our recap and analysis of this year's show, and one of the event's major players was Bianca Belair, who put on what has to be considered a star-making performance as she won the event. So what did our fellow wrestlers think of her performance? Well, apparently quite a lot, as Biggie tweeted Belair receiving a standing ovation when she entered the locker room. Belair was delighted at a win, noting in an interview on YouTube with Alice Ashton, beating Bayley was one thing, it was great, but winning the Women's Royal Rumble and lasting over an hour? What can top this? Other than now going to WrestleMania, this is a great moment. This is a moment that I can't even describe. It's just the answers of feeling. It's a feeling. How do I feel? It's just a feeling that I can't describe. I'm just so excited. I'm so ready to go to WrestleMania. Another touching moment was her husband Montez Ford, who embraced her as she came backstage. Next up, a history-making night. Not only was this year's Royal Rumble a star-making night, but it was one that saw several records being made. The first with Bianca Belair, as not only did Bianca win this year's Royal Rumble, but she made history in doing so. Kayla Braxton noted in this tweet, little tidbit of information that was brought to my attention by Ashok Moore. Bianca Belair is the second black person to ever win the Royal Rumble, the other being The Rock. Couldn't think of anything more appropriate as we head into Black History Month. Naturally, this also means that Bianca is the first black woman to win the women's event. This was just one record made at the Rumble. Another was by Edge, as WWE Hall of Famer Edge's amazing Iron Man performance win in the Rumble saw him last from the number 2 position all the way to the end when he eliminated Randy Orton, winning the Rumble in the latest moment in his Cinderella story comeback. Wrestling's Rated R superstar also made history by becoming the first superstar to win a Royal Rumble after being inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. We can just see Hulk Hogan now wanting to beat that record. Also, Randy Orton, as add in Randy Orton to the Royal Rumble record book, as the legend killer lasted roughly 58 minutes without eliminating anyone. Reddit user Throwaway05122018 pointed out this bit of wrestling trivia, and Ringside News' Philip Hendricks noted Orton's feat breaks Sami Zayn's record from the 2017 Royal Rumble, where he went over 47 minutes without an elimination. And finally, a ridiculous record. One record that WWE critics should have a field day with relates to the average age of men's Royal Rumble participants. Dave Meltzer mentioned this on the latest Wrestling Observer, saying, Dominic Mysterio and Otis were the only people in this men's Rumble match that are under the age of 30. I mean, that is freaking preposterous. This was in fact the oldest Royal Rumble in history in its 30-year history, so it's nothing new. The second oldest was last year, by the way. This was the oldest Royal Rumble in history, and it just accentuated the problem. This record shouldn't surprise anyone considering the number of WWE legends who popped in the men's Royal Rumbles, such as Carlito, Christian, and Kane. The WWE packed the event with as many big names as possible, which explains absence of so many young WWE superstars, many of whom are stuck in the mid-card. Next up, John Cena out of WrestleMania 37? And despite a number of reports that John Cena was set to appear at WrestleMania 37, the 16-time world champion claims that just isn't happening. Cena, who has been busy in Hollywood and is currently filming the HBO Max series The Peacemaker, talked about his contract restricts him from the ring, discussing a provision known as a letter of regulation. It's very difficult to say because I know it's going to be disappointing for a lot of people, but according to the letter of regulation right now, there is no mathematical way I can be at WrestleMania this year. Cena also had some fun with his past stance against part-timers showing up in the WWE. You may recall that when Cena was a full-time wrestler, he criticized The Rock for his part-time appearances in WWE. Cena told Sports Illustrated, "What a hypocritical situation. I used to be very open about the fact that part-timers were just that, and here I am at 44 years old, and I've become what I despise, as they say. That is kind of what it is." Now, is Cena working the fans, or is he truly unable to wrestle at this year's Showcase of the Immortals? While he says that he's unable to appear in the ring, he doesn't have to appear in a wrestling capacity. Perhaps he could be a guest host, just like The Rock did, but we're just gonna have to wait and find out. Next up, a SmackDown superstar's contract expiring very soon. There's big news on the Blue brand as Wrestling Inc. is reporting the contract of one of SmackDown's most underutilized talents will be expiring soon. Raj Giri explained in an exclusive report that Cesaro's contract is set to expire sometime shortly after WrestleMania. As Cesaro's been with the WWE since 2011 and fans of the Swiss Superman are disappointed he's been stuck in a mid-card role for most of his WWE run. Cesaro just turned 40, but he's still a beast in the ring and has much to offer. Jeez, just look at him easily pick up Braun Strowman in the Rumble last night. The question for him is how much the WWE is willing to pay him to stay and what role Cesaro would have elsewhere should he leave the WWE. While AEW seems like a good fit, fans have to keep in mind that AEW is filled with talent right now, and no matter how well AEW is booked, there are only so many spots to take given AEW's limited television time. Cesaro may be content in his current role in the WWE as long as her checks keep clearing, so don't be surprised if he decides to stay in the WWE. Next up, Christian, one more match. The Royal Rumble always features surprise appearances by WWE legends, and last night's matches were no exception, with Edge's best friend Christian popping in for a huge reunion. Captain Charisma showed up to a big reception, hugging Edge before taking care of business alongside his former tag team partner. Christian has obviously been hitting the gym and putting in a solid performance, making it to the Final Four before being thrown out by Seth Rollins. Now that Christian has shown he can wrestle, is there any chance of him returning for another match? Christian discussed this in an interview after the Rumble, hinting, "What's next for me? All I ever promised was one more match. That could be it." And finally, replacements in the Rumble and surprise entrants not being used. Now you've likely heard the news that Retribution member Reckoning, aka Mia Yim, tested positive for COVID, forcing the WWE to take her out of the Women's Royal Rumble. However, how did they replace her? Dave Meltzer speculated on the recent Wrestling Observer Radio that it could have been that Shotzi Blackheart or Santana Garrett was a last-minute replacement for Mia Yim because Mia Yim was supposed to be in that match and she tested positive for COVID. Santana Garrett is in the area, so I think that, one of those two was probably the replacement for Mia Yim. Whoever got the coveted spot received a golden opportunity to showcase their skills as everyone involved in the Women's Rumble put in a strong showing. Not to mention Brock Lesnar lookalike Parker Boudreaux was spotted with Eva Marie. Yeah, the 22-year-old football star Parker Boudreaux is a physical beast, so perhaps it's only apropos that he was seen with former WWE superstar Eva Marie. Boudreaux, whose uncanny resemblance to Brock Lesnar and his use of the next big thing tagline in his social media, tweeted a picture of him and Eva Marie with the caption, "Let's get ready to rumble." Parker hinted at entering the grappling game at some point in the near future, so don't be surprised to see him in the WWE given his past appearances there. But there you have it guys, the wildest wrestling news stories and rumors you need to know. Be sure to leave your comments down below, subscribe if you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Facebook for exclusive lists, and I'll see you next time with some more wrestling content.